Looks like we're back with the SML podcast 3 days in a row. This is Championship Sunday edition. I believe it's Colts and Chargers and Falcons and Vikings. Colts and Chargers first.
Yeah, Chargers is a tough matchup. Obviously, he's beaten some good opponents. He's beaten Big John. He's ran the table here, so I'm a little nervous for this game, and I think he's going to pull out on top.
Yeah, I can't quite say the same thing. I think the Colts will go ahead and win. Their team is better from a roster standpoint. And although this guy has won some big games, he still doesn't quite have, obviously the unknowns is a scary factor, but I think that's more of a mental thing than anything. The Colts are the better team overall and win-wise. Then you have to break down the NFC Championship, Falcons versus Vikings.
I'm going to take Falcons.
I'm also going to take Falcons, taking down Jonesy. Was a big win for the Falcons, and I think he's got a lot of talent. And adding the veteran presence of Aaron Rodgers hasn't slowed the team down any. So, yeah, that's kind of where I stand with those two games. All right, what you guys aren't going to be able to see or hear on the podcast is we took about an hour intermission. Colts primetime squared up against Money Matt 18, the Chargers owner, in the AFC Championship game. And it looked like it was going to be a really close game. The Colts went on a really long drive to start the thing off, got a touchdown. Next thing you know, the Chargers have a quick 1-minute drive, 3 plays, tied the game. And pretty much after that, not much happened on the Chargers, and the Colts wound up going up like 21-7 at one point. I believe at 28-7, something like that.
Yeah. We got up on them 28-7. I think that we passed the ball well, didn't make any mistakes. That was a big key. Ran the ball effectively with Finley, and Luck had like 3 or 4 big runs. His runs weren't a big part of the game, but I think that, it definitely helped. I think I could have won without, those runs. But at the end of the day, that's what makes Andrew Luck so great, and that's why he's going to retire a Colt in the SML.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a fun game to watch. Unfortunately, it doesn't sound like the Vikings and the Falcons are going to go down until tomorrow. So I guess we're done with SML fun for the night. But I guess just a Super Bowl preview. We'll break down the 2 matchups right now, 2 potential matchups. The Colts are in the Super Bowl no matter what. They punch their ticket to wherever the Super Bowl is going to be at.
Yeah, we don't even know where the Super Bowl is going to be in 2021, do we?
No, I have no idea. But what I do know is the Colts are in, and they're 15-1. They had a good game last week against the Dolphins, and then they had an even better game this week. I had a feeling that this game wasn't going to be as close as last week. I didn't think it was going to wind up, being the 2 boys going at it, knocking stuff over in the kitchen kind of deal. But it was definitely a great game from the Colts. But I guess we'll talk about the Colts and potential Vikings matchup first. I just lost to the Vikings myself. Started off really well on offense, and then all of a sudden my offense petered out in the second half. That's one thing I can say about the Colts is the offense will not peter out in the second half. You're either going to get a good Colts performance or you're not. And the Colts don't seem like they have very many bad games. If the rumor's true, where team overall really matters right now at this title update, I don't think there's many teams that are much better than the Colts. And out of the 2, the Vikings certainly wouldn't be the better team overall compared to the Colts. So just from that aspect, I take the Colts. If you look at start breaking down matchups, you look at the Vikings secondary compared to the wide receivers. I mean, you got Odell Beckham Jr., you got T.Y. Hilton, you got Philip Dorsett, Gronkowski, and then a second-string Buttram. Those are all starters on any team there. And then the running back Finley's just a Madden glitch waiting to happen. He just trucks and breaks tackles. He's like LeGarrette Blount. He always lunges forward, or most of the time he'll lunge forward for a nice run, and occasionally he'll bust a big one.
Yeah.
Give me your take on this potential Colts-Vikings matchup.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's the Falcons as well, but we were talking about the Vikings first. I think back on the Finley note, a lot of people like their speed backs. I prefer a running back who can truck and just fall forward, because I don't throw it to my backs a lot. But I watched your game, against the Vikings, and a great player, 9-7, so making a little bit of a Cinderella run right now. But, Viking, just based off his team alone, I think my ideal matchup would be against the Vikings compared to the Falcons.
What would you need to do in order to beat the Vikings if you play the Vikings?
Yeah, I would say just basically the blueprint I had this game where, Andrew Luck tossed 3 touchdowns, had 14 passes, and ran the ball, I don't know, 20 times. I had more runs than passes. He had a perfect quarterback rating. Passed the ball 14 times, completed 11 of them, and I ran the ball 20 times. And even though I had 3.5 yards per carry, it seemed like those were effective yardage when need be.
Okay, so I guess we'll take a look at the other potential matchup, Colts versus Falcons now. I watched the entire stream last night of Atlanta and Carolina. Basically, it could have went either way. Both teams had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to put each other away. And I was starting to get aggravated watching this game, like, well, come on, Atlanta, get with it. And eventually they went to overtime, and then he got enough going where he got in field goal range. Ice the kicker feature happened, and it didn't matter. He had ice water in his veins, right in his loins, and he made the kick. And henceforth, he's in the NFC Championship game. So I guess first we can just talk about the fact that the Falcons are a very stacked team. They went to Aaron Rodgers at quarterback now. They have a plethora of wide receivers. They got a guy like Perriman, who a lot of people a Madden or two ago really like throwing a Perriman on the Ravens because of his speed. Their running back, the first Falcons owner we had, really kind of scalped the roster on him, gave up his running back, but then he drafted Gregory, who's no slouch. The dude's 96 speed. He's got a 93 speed back. He's got a 95 speed back.
So he likes his speed is what you're telling me. He likes getting them quick running backs who can catch the football and make big plays.
Yeah, and then if you take a look at the wide receivers, he's got Keenan Allen, which in that game I saw him make several large plays. I remember one on the sideline in particular was just a big-time play. And like I said, he has Perriman, who is a 95 speed wide receiver. So there's a lot of matchup.
And his starting 3 receivers are all above 6 foot tall. You got Perriman and Allen are both 6'2", and then Finyu Carey is 6 foot tall with 91 speed. So obviously, Keenan Allen's a little bit slower. He's older, but he makes up with it with 93 catching traffic. So he's got these big body guys.
Hooper, the tight end, I remember. I was actually in pursuit of Hooper for a minute there.
Yeah. So he's done well in drafting and making the right moves with a poor team, because he did come in a few seasons in, and he's managed. I think this is his hometown team picked him, and he's really done justice to him, and he's got him in a spot to possibly go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, just browsing through the roster, I will say the glaring weakness on it is clearly the offensive line. And with your defense and your defensive line, I think that would pose a threat. Although from what I've seen of the Falcons and from the teams, like, just if you want to say Jonesy, you want to throw that out there, the fact that he beat him, I think you can, as a testament how good the Falcons are.
I would say that in the Jonesy game, I can't comment on every game he's played, but he gets the ball out quick usually. If he doesn't get it out quick, he's going to be in trouble because his offensive line blows at protecting the quarterback. It's bad. But Jonesy did have a good pass rushers, and he, it was just this gritty battle, and just goes to show that the Falcons, he's no slouch, and that's why he's in this point or at this stage, and I think that's why he's going to advance to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think we both got Atlanta picked in that one. I think we mentioned that earlier in this podcast. So now, if you say that that's the matchup, if it's Falcons versus Colts, who wins that game?
I would like to say myself, but Falcons is, it's like when the Colts beat the Patriots in 2006. They beat the Patriots, and I think that the Falcons beating the Panthers is, he's getting the monkey off his back.
Okay, Steve. Really, you danced around the question, but you really didn't answer. You said you'd like to win, but I think you also kind of half-assed said that the Falcons won. I'm just going to go ahead and say that the Colts are winning the Super Bowl. The only time you lost a Super Bowl was within the SML is when you played Jonesy.
Yes.
And that's only like the one time out of the 5 SML Super Bowls you've been to, yes, potentially. Yes. And the last time you had a team this good was the end of last Madden cycle, and when you won 2 of them to close out the Madden 16. I don't see anyone being able to beat you, and right now even that game wasn't just pure domination. I mean, it was close for, you know, that half. I mean, I've seen you really stick it to some guys, so I'm still waiting for that type of game, and potentially the Super Bowl might be that game, but we won't know until it's time, so stay tuned to see what happens in the SML. Good luck to the Falcons and Vikings, who are playing on sometime Friday, probably Friday evening. And then I guess we'll break down the Super Bowl one more time. We'll do something like this where we record something before the game, the big game, the Super Bowl, and then we'll record something after, give our thoughts. Stay tuned for that. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. I can stay up to date on all of our content. Other than that, hope you guys have a great day.